So Minecraft Live just took place announcing 2 new content drops for the game, one including bundles and hardcore mode for Bedrock, and the other introducing the new Creaking mob and Pale Garden biome. Since we've known about bundles for almost 4 years now, I want to focus on the new Pale Garden update because so far I feel like it's largely lacking something. Now it's important to clarify this is one of the first updates following Mojang's new drop system, and what we've been shown is still all a work in progress, so things are still bound to change. Due to this update being a part of the new drop system, it's still expected to be smaller than the past few summer updates we received, but size isn't really the problem. I actually quite like the idea of having smaller, more frequent updates. The problem lies with the content itself, in this case being the Pale Garden biome and Creaking mob as a whole. Now it's important to mention that everything in this video is constructive criticism, as I actually do really like the idea and premise of both the Pale Garden and the Creaking mob. I just think they could use a few tweaks to make them a lot better. With that being said, let's focus on the new biome being the Pale Garden. This is a new overworld biome with an eerie and dull aesthetic. I have 2 major problems with this biome, being its design and its incentive. Starting with the design, I would be lying if I said this biome didn't just look like a retexture of the Dark Forest. I mean, the trees look almost identical in shape and size, with the only generational difference being the vines that hang from these new pale trees. It was stated the motivation for the tree's overall shape and design was taken from a willow tree. Outside of the vines though, there's little to no resemblance to a willow tree. If Mojang is to introduce a new forest biome, I think it's important that it feels vastly different from anything we've seen before. I mean, look at the cherry and mangrove trees. These are the 2 most recent trees added to the game, and their generation is unlike anything we've seen prior. I believe Mojang needs to completely overhaul the design for these trees and make it look either more like a willow tree, or they should take inspiration from the large dead trees you'd see in Halloween movies. I don't honestly know what they're called, so I'm just gonna refer to them as spooky trees. This would already do wonders for differentiating the biome from the Dark Forest, and would overall just be far more interesting. Now in the new snapshot, it did say that this is a variant of the Dark Forest biome, but I think it should be its own biome rather than a variant. Now outside of changing the tree design, the forest needs more decoration to help promote the spooky and eerie vibe it's aiming for. Currently, the biome feels a little bit empty, as outside of the trees, there are no forms of plant life or other blocks besides gray moss that spawn there. And while I know it's supposed to be empty, it shouldn't be empty with content, it should feel empty. So 2 of the best ideas I've seen thrown around the community to fix this problem is to add white pumpkins and fog. Both of these ideas are absolutely fantastic in my opinion for improving the biome's overall aesthetic, and if Mojang does decide to redesign the trees to be larger and taller, the fog would be necessary for keeping players' vision limited, which is a part of the biome's current design. However, to avoid having the fog become an annoyance, I think it should only be present during the night. Besides these 2 ideas, I think the biome could use some more plants to really fit the name of Pale Garden. Now, do I think these biomes should be filled with lush and blooming flowers? No. But I think the addition of some plants that appear to be dead, like literal new dead flowers, would be really great. You know what else would be really great is if you hit that like button. It helped me out quite a bit and it's completely free. And if you are enjoying this video a lot, hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on another video just like this one. You did it? Great, thanks. Back to the video. So that covers the overhaul to the biome's visuals, but the other main problem is the why. See, the Pale Garden biome really has nothing that's gonna make the players want to visit it outside of the new wood set, which I gotta mention, I do really like the new wood, but by itself, I don't think it justifies going to the biome. This biome is already something that's going to be dangerous to explore with the new Creaking mob, so I think having your only reward for going there be wood isn't enough. If anything, you're gonna want to avoid it outside of getting 1 sapling. I mean, once you do have that 1 sapling for the Pale Garden tree, you never have to go back. So how do we give an incentive for the players to visit this biome? Well, like mentioned previously, adding more visual blocks for building like dead flowers and white pumpkins would help, but I think there needs to be something functional as well. Take the white pumpkin for example. These could be rare and scattered throughout the biome, but be used to bring a new form of golem to life that only functions with a white pumpkin instead of a normal one. They could finally reintroduce the copper and tough golem with this white pumpkin, or they could come up with something completely new. But I think having the white pumpkin be unique to the Pale Garden is a great incentive to visit the biome. The one thing I do have to say though is if they do decide to add white pumpkins, I don't think they should make it that by wearing a white carved pumpkin, you can't get attacked by the new Creaking mob. I think that would just ruin the point. Another incentive to visit the biome should be related to the Creaking heart block, the block that allows the Creaking mob to spawn. While currently you can silk touch it and bring the mob back to your base, it doesn't really serve an actual function. The only real use for this mob is to troll your friends or to protect your base on a server. It wasn't stated whether or not the Creaking would still attack you and if it would attack mobs, so without these 2 things, it's practically useless in solo survival. I think the first fix for this would be to add a domesticated variant of the Creaking heart. This could be done by surrounding it with amethyst shards, giving them a another use to create a new variant of the Creaking Heart that now spawns a new variant of the Creaking that attacks other mobs and is friendly towards players. Now the Creaking is actually useful for defending your base, and maybe you could even retexture this new variant to be a tree covered in leaves and plant life to contrast the dead tree you see attacking you in the Pale Garden. Maybe you could even assign the domesticated Creaking Heart with a mob head to serve as a new placeable and collectible spawner. This would definitely be controversial though, and I could see this being a bit mod-like, but I thought it was an idea worth mentioning. Another note is I don't think the Creaking Heart should spawn in pale trees spawned by player saplings. This is to force players to actually go out in search of the biome more than once. The Creaking Heart should also be used to craft another functional item useful to the players so it doesn't end up being a one-use block. This shouldn't be an item that you craft once either. It should be something you want to craft in bulk. This could be as simple as a new redstone mechanic related to visual detectors, or maybe it could be crafted into a block that spawns in fog for builds around a 10 or 15 block radius. This function doesn't have to be something like a new weapon or a consumable. I just think it needs to have multiple uses. It's also important to remember that while the Creaking Heart is somewhat difficult to obtain, it's nowhere near the level of challenge as something like an ancient city or a trial chamber, so its use shouldn't be over the top. It should be something very simple but still useful. Simply by giving the biome more visual differences and adding a few more functions to the Creaking Heart, the Pale Garden could actually be one of the best biomes in the game. The Creaking mob is by far one of the most unique mobs we've seen introduced in a long time, and I think its unique combat challenge is going to make exploring this biome quite interesting. The Creaking mob itself is honestly great in my opinion. The only tweaks that may be necessary is how much damage it deals or how frequent they spawn. Outside of those few factors though, I don't really think the Creaking needs to be changed. I think it's a really well-made mob. The Pale Garden and Creaking mob both have a really great premise, and while we only saw what was complete at Minecraft Live, I think adding the features mentioned prior would really help flesh out the biome and make it feel complete. It doesn't need a ton of content. It doesn't need a new dungeon or a new weapon. It just needs some simple visual changes and a few uses for the Creaking Heart. But hey, these are just a few ideas on how to improve what we've been shown for this update so far. What do you think about these ideas? Do you have any of your own? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, so leave any you have down in the comments below. And before you go, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button. It helps me out quite a bit. And if you really enjoyed watching the video, subscribe so you never miss out on another one just like this. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.